All right, everyone, welcome back to another Roma Press podcast, or at this point, Andy, I should say the Roma Press slash Everton adjacent podcast. Oof, it is what a time to be alive. That is all I can say. Before we get into everything, thank you to all of our wonderful patrons over at Patreon. If you would like to join, get early access to episodes, other things as well, patreon.com/Roma Press, and of course at IS Roma Press on YouTube. Like, subscribe. If you could do that now, we would greatly appreciate it. What a week we have been unveiled, both you and myself. I mean, you want to talk about rolling out our faces to the UK, or to be more specific, Liverpool, the Liverpool area. You and I have been inundated with appearance and media requests. It has been overwhelming. I said this in our patron group chat. Perhaps I have just been ignorant, or perhaps I just didn't pay close enough attention. If I
Or
had
you
gone
live in
to,
Ohio.
oh, you know what? You're going to love this. So hold on, before I get into this. So I have like a realtor, okay, over looking for a new flat for us. Obviously, no longer in Asiago. And I have left it so open-ended. It's just don't pretty much I am open to any and all places, just no further south than Lazio. So every Saturday morning, I get sent a list of potential options. Today, I open it, and of the 5 options I was sent, 4 of them were in and around Bergamo.
Yeah, he
So,
knew what you love. He knew how to get to your heart.
yeah, but with the 5th being just 20 to 30 minutes from Ferrara.
Okay.
So
Well, that's not too
I
bad. Come on.
no, no, no,
That's
no,
not too
no,
bad.
no, 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 no. Listen, once you live in Asiago, and yes, for anybody unfamiliar with like Italian geography, that yes, same as the cheese.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
nobody
but you got the mountains. You got the mountains.
very Swiss atmosphere. It's
Yeah, you got the
very similar
mountains.
to Friuli.
Sure.
Very similar to Friuli. You have this weird uh, alpine. Is that the right
It's
term?
alpine.
Like
Yeah, sure. Alpine. Yeah.
yes, a lot of Swiss. There's a hockey team there. Just a lot
Okay,
of
well, I mean,
a lot of Swiss influence in that part of the country. Um, so once you live there, really you have to be just by default open to any other place
sure.
in the country. I just
That's our tourism segment out of the way.
yeah, listen, nothing negative to say.
No,
Well, other than the
we're
no
keeping
further
it
south than
positive.
Lazio. Uh, um, I don't speak the same languages as any further
Okay.
below. All right, so listen, I have learned
Liverpool,
more about.
back to the Beatles.
Listen, it is kind of like we are getting the band back together, because it brought me back to the days of going on all of these Liverpool podcasts, going on BBC Merseyside, absolutely being belittled. Well, oh, Alisson, Momo Salah, they did good with Roma. Are they good enough for the Premier League, though? Did they overpay 40 million euros? And you essentially have to go there and sacrifice any sort of any sort of confidence, or self-confidence you have in yourself, because man, half of the questions they are phrased in such a belittling way in the opening half of it, that by the time you get to the actual question portion, the way it is phrased to you, or the way they pose it, the preamble before the actual question, it's like they're trying to just beat you over the head to see how low they can make you sink. I mean, some of the questions. Well, he did. He won trophies with Roma. Is he going? Can Dan Friedkin win trophies in the Premier League? Well, yeah, they were able to do some things in the transfer market with Roma. What are they going to be able to do with that? how in the world am I supposed to answer a question like that? I don't know what they're going to do in the transfer market. Let's be serious. Um, the only thing I do know is this deal is going to close. This deal has been formulating at such an alarmingly fast pace. Andy, I cry a little bit each time this happens because he's about to close this thing with Everton in a matter of days. Children could have been born, or I'm sorry, could have been conceived and born in the time
And they
between
were. They were.
they were, could have been conceived and then born
Yes.
during the time in which he opened the negotiation with James Peralta
Aren't
and
you
then
the primary
closed.
suspect in this?
Well, hold on.
Wasn't
We have to be
one of
careful
those
now because I'm sure
15
everybody saw
children?
the story of a guy who formerly worked at Roma, who
Yeah.
was a former communications manager that I mentioned here by name, who is now being
Sued
taken
for 5
taken to
million.
court and sued, which, by the way, they know he doesn't have that. That's They are aware he does not have that kind of money. Okay,
So they're basically stripping him naked and shotgunning him to a wall.
right. Well, this is listen. There are execute. This is essentially tar, feather, execution, and then tar and feather again.
What are you saying? Is this your way of announcing to Everton fans what they're in for with the
No,
Friedkins if
no,
you
no.
cross
By
them?
no means that I no longer have, because when these things happen, um, because I am assuming some of the thing. I have somewhat of an idea that maybe what is behind this sort of stuff. I am I am just waiting to receive that email saying, we would like you to preserve all communications with, and then they have the name from the dates of blank until blank. I'm waiting to receive that email. Um, so if you see me recording from, I don't know, I haven't
Yeah,
Googled
from a
which
cave
countries
from
don't
the
have an
from
extra.
Osama bin Laden's apartment. Yeah, next time.
When he's got that compound with
Yeah,
those
that's
VHS
where you're
tapes.
gonna be in. That's where you're gonna be in.
Well, sometimes
Okay,
that's what
so
our video looks like because of this platform we record on. But I don't, I don't know how we got on Osama bin Laden when I am
no,
speaking
no,
of
I'm just
Everton.
where you were
The
saying that it
juxtaposition of
took,
this
yes, that the contrast between how quickly they got this deal done compared to the months or even year, really, of this
was a year.
speculation and talk was endless. I remember that. It was a
Incredible.
constant back and forth of speculating of whether it was really going to happen, of talking to some obscure sources that nobody should ever be contacting in the first place. Uh, until the moment in 2020 when finally the news came out that it was going to happen, that we're not going to be stuck with Guido Fienga for the rest of our lives.
That is true. Listen, this thing with Friedkin, it is just amazing to me because I said this in the previous episode, and I said this on every single appearance on these Everton outlets that I've done. They wanted a Premier League club from the beginning. Their preference was always to find a club in England to be able to play in the Premier League. They are still flush with just absurd levels of cash. We see these figures thrown out, and the way you or I, like pay for some mints, some mints at the shop, on like the way to the stadium or something, like uh, that's what they do with football teams. It's just the figures. It feels still like fantasy football. Some of these figures we play with, and we see mentioned so often. It's it's crazy to me at the speed at which a deal of this magnitude is able. Because literally two weeks ago, if you ask to the Friedkin Group, they were interested. They were in the. I think there were four total bidders that were given the opportunity to forward offers. Um, the one of the groups that won initially, the 777 group. I won't get into them again. Uh, but it should raise. If Serie A had any sense to them, which they don't, Lega Serie A, um, they should be wondering why the bodies of the Premier League deemed 777 Group not worthy of being able to pass that ownership test. But of course, any reflection from any Italian body won't happen. So don't hold your breath. But 2 weeks ago, they were dead last in this sort of small group of bidders, and now just within a week, they went from being among the last to now. This thing is going to close. It is going to close soon. The speed at which this happens is still something I cannot grasp. I don't. I mean, you and I have both grown up and spent significant amount of time in this country. I can't recall anything related to football, uh, ownership switch, just anything of this magnitude happening so quickly. Like I'm going on these shows talking of the Friedkin Group, try to give some level of insight and expertise, and I still can't comprehend how a
Yeah.
club can be sold in such a quick manner. You've been doing the appearances too. You
Yeah,
have
and you're, and you're we are being brought on to bring insight into the Friedkins, but there is no way to give insight into the Friedkins because literally, I remember you and Filippo Biafora struggled to find more than one picture of Dan Friedkin to use for any article or tweet. There was always the same picture of him smiling, one in that open shirt with the collar open, and then the other one where he's standing in his suit smiling again. That was the And then there was one where he's getting in the cockpit of an airplane. That's it. Those were the three photos that you had at disposal, that the only evidence of the Friedkin's existence in physical form. So what kind of insight can you be? How many times have they spoken since have been at Roma? They haven't spoken to a camera on sort of official matters ever. There is not even those minor tidbits of Dan Friedkin speaking in his Texan accent to Filippo Biafora just outside some hotel in Portugal. I don't know, where he's just, yeah, man. So, that's it. That's the most you're gonna get.
hello,
Hello.
hello. Hey, yeah,
That's
good day.
howdy. That's it. That's the only. That's the only thing. I swear to God, there's nothing. There's not. So I've had these. What I spoke to BBC Mayor side for BBC Sport, and they were like, yeah, the only thing that we could get on the Friedkins is what we got from your podcast and from the website. That because
I
the
saw
only
interviews with some of the airport workers.
Yeah,
What are you
there's
doing?
nothing. There was nothing. There was just the remember that first statement that the Friedkins released when the move was official. They came to Roma. They released that statement of, "You will not be hearing from us." Like, that was the most incredible move on the part of an owner. Is, yeah, we're in charge of things now. You're not gonna hear from us. Um, and talking to people, I was speaking to another journalist for iNews, um, who, I was trying to make the Friedkins a palpable, concept, rather than just this overarching, impossible, invisible form. I was trying to, remember Tom Hardy flying in Dunkirk, the movie by Christopher Nolan. That's Dan Friedkin right there, in that airplane. Um, but what else can you say? What else can you say? You can say that these are people that have spent obscene amounts of money to get Roma out of a never sinking hole. Um, I've been so surprised, John, to read the last reports in Italian media that show that Roma have increased their revenue by 17% compared to last year. The net profit is up by 25%. I mean, those are things that, when the Friedkins came in, I never I never thought they would be possible. I thought that for that to happen, it would take ages. Then add to that the fact that they've been hard at work, would be an understatement, on the new stadium. And to be hard at work on this new stadium thing, it means to have nerves of steel, because this thing moves at such a snail's pace. I can't imagine the glee, the utter uh, liberation of Ryan Friedkin or Dan Friedkin when they realize that at Everton they're going to have a brand new stadium, they're going to have the Euros being hosted there, they're going to be looking at infrastructure and at a government that actually values sports infrastructure in a way that Italy will never do.
Did you know Dan Mize also designed their stadium too? I didn't know that before appearing on these different shows. Can you imagine Dan Mize? He designed Stadio della Roma. Do you remember that? I will never forget because I was in Rome at the time. The absurdity of this. They made this big gala event, Stadio della Roma. It looked like um, basically this big building made of Legos or something with all of these small scale figurines, and it's like, oh my gosh, wow, just a few years. We that was over 10 years ago. 10 years ago, or just about 10 years ago. Can you imagine that guy? He's going to. In that time, he will have designed and this stadium been built before a shovel is even put into the ground for Roma. Mind blowing. Mind blowing. Levels of absurdity that we cannot even like begin to quantify.
And
I
we'll
know
never
you.
understand, and we'll never understand. And then you that I think that same thing applies to investments, because all these outlets, all these journalists reaching out to us, they want to know, well, have Roma fans been happy with the investments made by the Friedkins? Will the Friedkins splash a lot of money? That's the question, in terms of signings. I say, I don't know, because I've seen them operate under financial fair play, number one. And then in the context of Serie A, I mean, let's remember when they splashed 100 million in their first transfer window in the summer, 100 million in Serie A was the most any team had spent on the transfer market in that particular summer. John,
Yes.
100 million is what is the bare minimum someone like Nottingham Forest will spend, or freaking Sheffield United.
Right.
So when they ask me about the realities of the Premier League, first of all, I don't really know the specifics of the situation that Everton are facing in terms of financial fair play. I know that they're being forced basically to sell their most important players to teams like Chelsea, but I don't know what the capabilities of the Friedkins will be in the context of the Premier League, where if you spend 100 million, you're gonna get laughed off.
Right.
So
Yeah,
if
that's
you do
nothing.
that in Serie A, you're the king of the castle. If you do that in the Premier League, you're a homeless person.
Well, as I have repeated on every appearance I have made, the look on their faces when they are presented with the figures of the television rights and other media deals, I can. He will have physical reactions. Dan and Ryan Friedkin. They will be taken to an alternate universe. They will be outside of their body because they will not be able to comprehend how you can have two clubs playing the same sport, top tier in each country, playing on the same continent, both in UEFA, and yet the gulf in media. Obviously, the language is an advantage that nobody will be able to ever bridge. That is just an inherent advantage that Everton is going to have when it comes to the Friedkin Group and the resources available to them. Now, I do think Senia, there are. The only reason I'm doing this is because there was nothing in English on Roma in English in like 15 years ago. Okay, so Serie A, just within a handful of years, they're still trying to do anti racism campaigns with monkeys. We're about
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
We're
Oh,
about
that was
52
too good.
years behind still.
Yeah.
So things like that are never going to be. That gap cannot be bridged.
Yes. Yes.
But still, there are things that I just I can't explain. I can't explain why the Premier League. Why is the interest significantly that much greater? It might be greater. I wouldn't say the Premier League Serie A is is the interest level that much different? To me, it's football. Football is football. People like La Liga, they like Spain. Premier League still makes so much more than, in the
Hmm.
television deal. So I don't know what that means for the transfer market. I don't know what that is going to mean and what they are going to be able to spend. But all of these deals, every single time there is a deal of this magnitude, there is always some agreement when it comes to the debt to be paid off and to obviously be taken on by the incoming group. I would argue that's I probably the most vital portion of the deal to begin with. But they are. I mean, look at the money they have put forth in Roma. Half a billion euros. Okay, half a billion. Um, that is on top of what they paid to acquire Roma. That
Yeah,
is
that's what I
excluding.
yeah, that's what I said. We're talking about close to 1 billion on a club like
Yes,
Roma, which is crazy. It's crazy, especially if you think about where we were at the time. So,
yes,
and the same thing here with Everton. I mean, we're talking about. I'm hearing figures of like 400, for almost half a billion in debt, of the Friedkins covering that debt, and then the
yes.
rest, almost with in total almost 1 billion, for the whole package. So, and these guys, so that's why I'm curious to see how they, because they know that this is what they want, this is the spotlight that they wanted. Yesterday they asked me, because they said, at the BBC radio, they were like, well, we read the statement of the Friedkins and they called Roma a sleeping giant. And it's true, as in, I see this running theme between Roma and Everton, two clubs who have notoriously underachieved, not
Mm,
known for winning. Everton's best result in the last few years has been Carlo Ancelotti ending up 10th. He walked away from it. Otherwise, Roma also, they've underachieved. They won a Conference League trophy under the Friedkins, but for years they underachieved, or they were faced with opponents who had more money, better teams, better coaches. So there is a running theme there, but I'm interested to see how the Friedkins will adapt to the Premier League reality. Because if they ask me, well, what are going to be the investments like? I have no idea. I know what the Friedkins can and cannot do at Roma because of financial fair play, because Roma have once again missed out on Champions League football. But does that matter in the Premier League? It seems like in the Premier League it doesn't really matter, whether in terms of appeal in general, whether you get Champions League football or not, whether you're in the Europa League or not, whether you're in or out of Europe, it really doesn't make that much of a difference, because the Premier League, once again, has that kind of prestige that people like the Friedkins will love. So when they ask me, are the Friedkins good for the Premier League? I said, yeah, because these are owners that don't talk. They don't go out in front of the
yes.
microphones. They don't go out to like Aurelio De Laurentiis of Napoli, and they hold entire press conferences where they call people idiots and shitheads and this and that. They're serious people who, if needed, they'll go and take their private jet and pick up Paulo Dybala or Jose Mourinho or Romelu Lukaku and bring them back in person to Ciampino Airport.
Yeah, and I underscored this as well on the appearances I made. Dan Friedkin, either 1 year ago or 2 years ago, he is now on the board of the ECA, the European Club Association, meaning his influence within UEFA is growing. He went from being a guy who owns not a single football club, having nothing to do with football. Now he's about to acquire his third. I I can't envision. I just can't, and I mentioned this as well. Just UEFA is in a very precarious position when it comes to even this multi-club thing. They're not going to do anything. They are not going to make a fuss. They are not going to raise any
Well,
issues
well,
because
they are. I was asked because they said, the latest example, John. I don't know if you've seen this. Is Manchester United have encountered a problem because they're trying to bring in a defender from Nice,
yes,
Todibo. but they're owned by the same group. So right now, UEFA are blocking that deal because both teams are from the same group and they feature in the Europa League. So uh,
I have
we're
seen that.
still a long way away from it. But I think, in my personal opinion, that's something that UEFA will not be able to stop in the long run. That will be this multi-club model, you like it or not, but it will become the norm. I feel like that in 3 to 4 years it will become the norm. There will be, and also the pressure on the part of these clubs, on the part of these groups, will be very great on UEFA.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing too. If you really need to get technical about it, you can easily just from um, a paperwork standpoint, you can easily just change. Ownership groups. Well, we're going to name this person who is a part of the group. We're going to make some shell company, and I mean, look at what Watford and Udinese do. They do half a dozen operations every single summer. Give me a break. UEFA has no standing, in my opinion. There are some things that you cannot. Once they happen, once again the Rubicon gets crossed with PSG, with Manchester City, we can find so many examples where if this is the thing where you put your foot down and you say no, 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 no more. No, not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Eh, Maybe they are trying to raise some issue is to make it look like they actually, that there is no conflict. But come on, we're not children here. We understand that this whole thing is kind of, I won't say a scam, but listen, it's going to be the same 4 to 6 clubs making the Champions League quarterfinals, semifinals every single year because it's the ones with the most money. So let's cut the act. Football has sold itself out a decade
Yeah.
ago.
This whole
Come on.
good cop routine by UEFA of like trying to
Yeah,
present themselves as the the
the
help to the
good
working
guys.
man. It's
Yeah, right.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
we're trying to give smaller clubs a chance and just smaller
yeah. Right.
owners. Give me a break. Give me a
Yeah,
break. The whole organization for years has inspired much worse things. So to see exactly these this becoming a reality, it's normal. It comes with the territory. um you have people like the Friedkins who have a lot of money, and at the end of the day they're businessmen. They and the Friedkins, listen again, they've been everything they've done at Roma has been low key, behind the scenes, but always clean, always on the table. Like once something was done, it was done, and it was there for everybody to see. So that's just what I'm gonna say. If you do it the right way, that that's the world of football. It's evolving. It's something that we will have to realize that sooner or later you will have these multi-club models. I mean, you have it also in smaller contexts that we don't even know about. There's Olympique Lyon is owned by a group that owns a number of teams in Belgium. They do
right.
constantly deals back and forth. uh, Manchester City are in the group with Girona, with Palermo. So and you look at Girona, the kind of investments they made, the kind of players they sold to Manchester City, and they're up there now competing for La Liga, for Champions League. So that's what. So it's just drop the act. Let's see what happens. And also, listen, Everton haven't qualified to a European competition. God knows how long. I don't even know how long ago that was. Both clubs are in different stages of development. Roma are want to qualify for Champions League. That's their main goal. Everton just want to do good and not be in a relegation zone. So we're talking still years of development, years of investments. So I don't see why that should be a worry right now.
Yeah, I mean, even too with some of the precarious positions of other ownership groups, Zenit, they're owned by a Russian-backed company, Gazprom. If we want to go really dark, we can even, team RomaPress, Bayern Leverkusen. Don't look at what they don't look at what Bayer did during a certain period in the late 30s to mid 40s. Some of the stuff
Yeah,
that's
and
gone
don't
through.
look at 777.
Oh, yo,
Don't look at.
no, don't.
So that's we're gonna keep it there because
Oh
we
God,
want to keep our heads on
man.
top of our
Oh
torsos.
man,
We
I'm
want to.
starting to go now. Do you
No,
want
no,
to go
it's
down
okay. It's okay.
the
It's
buyer route? Oh
no, no,
man,
it's okay.
woo,
No, it's okay.
ah
Okay,
man, this
Andrea
is
Belotti. Andrea Belotti is
yay,
gone.
Belotti. No,
Yay.
no, hold on. The last thing on this freaking thing
Yeah.
before we move on to Belotti. Um, th- somebody from a larger newspaper in the UK was asking for me for some sources at the Friedkin Group. I think the only person who I don't even know if I told you this. I know Filippo is the only one who knows this. One of the reasons I was able to get lucky with the Freaking Group, there were two legal sources that I knew there, and then um, somebody very higher up. Do you remember when they set that contingency of like a dozen people to Rome from the Friedkin Group? Um,
I remember the guy in the room and you
so
texting him. Yeah.
yeah, so I had by mistake, I assume, been added to a group message thread or a group texting thread between some people. I don't even know if I can get in trouble for this. I should probably. No, never mind. I
Never
was
mind.
mistakenly added to a group
Christ.
text between some of the executives at the Friedkin Group. I'm just going to leave it at that. I probably shouldn't
Okay.
have even brought that up. Just never mind. Um, I'm going to be right next to you in that jail cell, Luca. Save some
That's
space for me, my friend.
yeah, that's what I'm
Save
saying.
some
Yeah.
space. I don't even know why I brought that up.
No, no, don't.
I was
No.
basically trying to highlight the point that they are close to
They're
impenetrable.
impossible to infiltrate.
Yeah, you have to get lucky. Somebody has to slip up, and I just happen to have been in a position where somebody slipped up, and they were not knowing that I was in this group chat. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Jesus Christ, John, you're gonna put a contract on us.
By the way, one of the individuals of whom is on, well, yeah, with that, is on Roma's board. I'll just leave it at that.
Well,
All right, transfer market stuff. Belotti, yeah, great.
Belotti should be gone after 2 years at Roma. 2 unremarkable years, to say the least.
Yeah,
I
listen,
don't
as
know if you've seen. Have you seen the stats? Have you seen the numbers?
hold on, I have, I have.
They're quite dire. I memorized the number of goals. It's 10 goals and I believe 4 assists. For a guy that was always on double digits in Italy, who I believe 6 or 7 years ago, Torino were asking 100 million. 100 million for Belotti. They rejected Milan's 60 million offer. Remember that wonderful duo Fassone and Mirabelli. Remember that wonderful
Yes. How could we forget?
just team of Fassone and Mirabelli, two executives who are now jobless. And they were the ones who offered 60 million for Belotti. Torino rejected it. They wanted 100 million. Fast forward to now, Belotti is being sold to Como. To Como. Newly promoted Serie A side Como. First time in their history, Como, George Clooney's team. Uh, they're being they're paying for Belotti 4 million plus add-ons. So
Yeah.
we're talking about a guy who I don't think I've ever witnessed a downfall so significant, and just from a mental point of view, um, from a complete and absolute leader for Torino, for a Torino side that for years battled only because of Belotti. He was giving them a
Mm.
fighting chance, and he went from leader to just a shadow, to just the most to the biggest non-factor on the pitch. It's still something that I cannot explain to myself, because I see now a lot of people that look at it and say, well, Belotti, why were people so happy when he came in? Well, John, if you remember, he came in on a free transfer. At the time, it seemed like, hey, that's the perfect backup, you know, on a free. A guy that's been going on double digits for years in Serie A. I mean, what else do you want? You know, that's a great weapon for Jose Mourinho to have.
Let's go back in time. I know in this particular season that I am talking about, you want to talk about memorizing numbers. This is why the way sort of my mental lapses, sort of my mental health issues manifest themselves. I just have this very strange memory. 2016, 2017. Okay, obviously we were in the throes of it with Spalletti. Roma are rolling. If you go and look at the data of Torino from that season, okay, they have three double-digit scorers. Okay, Andrea Belotti, I think he had almost 30 goals.
Yeah, yeah.
Take these other two. Here's one where you really have to just make sure you are sitting.
Icardi.
Yajic
Oh yeah. Oh
and
shit.
Iago Falque.
Oh shit. Yeah. 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 It's true. Huh.
Those three. Those three.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. I don't know if I'm more mind blown by Barotti almost having 30 or Yajic. Let me see if I can find the exact figure. But I believe Yajic in that season had about 12 or 13, and then Iago Falque had 11 or 12. Those two also passed through Roma. I think Yajic, you bring this up every now and
Yeah.
again. 2014, 2015, he is our leading scorer, I believe, with 9 goals. Yeah. And
Yes. Yes.
that is a season where Roma could not have, even if they had the chance to walk the ball into the back of the net, they would have struggled.
Yes.
That season was akin to torture, legalized torture.
Wasn't it also? Wasn't Ciro Immobile playing with Belotti then at Torino? I think
I
there
think
was
that
a.
was the season before. I just remember that is a season of Joe Hart at Torino, and they are like flying in that season in
No,
such
no, no,
a.
John. No, no, you're mistaken. Joe Hart is 2016-17, and they're not flying that season. With Joe Hart conceded about 100
Oh,
goals with Torino.
you're right. You're right. You're right. You
Yeah.
are right. You are right. Um,
It was no,
I
that was
should have said
before, but the point is, I mean, remember even in that game with where um where Totti scores those two goals against Torino, remember in
yes.
added
Where
time, yeah,
yes.
that's I mean, Belotti is a goal scorer in that game. Belotti has always been on the score sheet for Torino. When he came to Roma, the thought wasn't, oh, we're getting a world class player. The thought was, oh, we're getting a good backup option, a guy who knows his stuff in Serie A, a guy who's a proven goal scorer in Serie A, and that's someone that Mourinho wanted. No, he wanted that whole first season at Roma. He was like, well, if Tammy Abraham is not fit, I don't have anybody because Eldor Shomurodov is struggling, and there's just not enough goals sitting on the bench. Well, bringing Belotti on a free, it seemed like the logical next step in for a Roma team that had just won the Conference League trophy and wanted to up their game. They added Paulo Dybala. They wanted to bring in Belotti. They added the Nemanja Matic. So Roma were really going for the experience factor in that transfer window. They brought in Gini Wijnaldum. You know, everything pointed to a Roma team that was wanted to rely on veteran status, on experience. Belotti was supposed to bring that to the table. He did anything but that. I can't recall, except for those two games last season, the first games of the season against Salernitana and Hellas Verona. Remember, he scores in both of them. He looks like he's on fire, like he finally
Yes.
got a handle on it, like he finally grew out of that fear that he had in his first year at Roma. Remember, when he gets his contract renewed at the end of the season, it almost feels like they're renewing his deal because he initially agreed on a 1 year deal. It almost felt like they were renewing him out of pity,
Mm.
out of a sense of, well, you really tried hard and we appreciate the effort. Here's a new contract for you.
Well, we remember though, we have to bring this caveat. I mean, he waited and waited and waited
2 months.
and
2 months.
waited.
Two
Yes,
months.
before it was officialized. I think they felt like they owed him. And let's be fair, okay? In a way, they do, or they did. He could have. Listen, I know things are easy to look at in hindsight to say, "Oh, what were we thinking?" There was not one person who had any issue with that deal at the time, and
It seemed like a no-brainer. On a free transfer, back up to Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham was coming off a season of 27 goals. So you are not even worried about Tammy Abraham not scoring the way he didn't score that second season at Roma. You thought, well, if Tammy Abraham is hurt, you got Belotti replacing him. It didn't seem like it was a life or death situation, but with the way Tammy Abraham performed in that second season, you were like, okay, well, now we got Andrea Belotti, and he's certainly going to score, right? No, he didn't.
I mean, from Juve to Inter, every single top club in Serie A, if you just laid out very, very simply, would you accept Andrea Belotti on a free transfer to be not your number one, in some cases, maybe even your number three strike, a clear, clear option off of the bench? Okay, not even slightly is he factoring into your starting 11 equation. Every single club says yes without hesitation, without hesitation. And I will say, and this is an issue I think a couple of the patrons have raised, where he was coming off a season, I think he had 8 or 9 goals with Torino.
Yeah, his last
Um,
season, he was hurt a lot. Yeah, he
yes, he
was
was
injured.
that is exactly it. I suppose that's fair, but the season before, or not even the season before, the 4 or 5 seasons prior, the guy is getting 15 goals consistently every single
Yeah,
season.
no
So,
matter the roster around him,
right.
he always got it through. And you watch those games for Torino, and first of all, they were always so painful because remember they went through a spell of Walter Mazzarri, Mihailovic, and then I believe Juric came in after that. Before that, they also had some interim. I think Longo was his name. So they went through a really rough spell of coaches. Belotti was the only one consistently putting in the work. So you thought to yourself, well, here's the perfect context for him. There's not that pressure. There's not that sense of him having to be a leader for Roma. He's just going to
Or
be.
play next to Simone Zazza.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That those good years. No, or even there was a moment where he was playing next to Juan Iturbe. Remember, Iturbe goes
Yes,
on
man.
loan to Torino. Eh,
Maxi
That
Lopez,
that
man, this
that
guy has had
he was
all the
supposed to
partners.
he was supposed to just come in handy at Roma. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. It's for me, it's even a miracle that we're getting around, including bonuses, we're gonna get around 5 million for him. That I mean,
Yes,
given what he's shown, if you look at that loan at Fiorentina, it's a tragic loan. There's nothing redeeming there. He scored a brace, I think, on his final time out with Fiorentina against Atalanta. Um, but I mean,
yeah.
just no, he's bad, terrible, terrible, terrible performances, lack of confidence, lack of everything, really. You never felt his presence on the pitch, and obviously will be mostly remembered for that god awful miss
The
in the
mess.
Europa League
Oh,
final in Budapest. I mean, anybody else, that ball is going in.
and Roma win. I that miss lives so vividly in my mind too. And frankly, if you want to find like a very just simple, clear metaphor as to his time at Roma, I would say that is probably it. Um, man, even that first season, do you remember how long it took for him to to get a goal in the league? It felt like light years.
No, he
Um,
didn't score in the league.
well, yeah, that I mean for Salernitana. Well,
Yes, yes, he didn't
he gets the
score the
first
whole
two,
first
but
season.
correct. It's mind blowing because
That's
in
what
the
I'm
first
saying.
season,
That's the biggest downfall. Like you find me a guy that, I mean, nobody. I don't think I've ever seen a striker just drop that much in terms of confidence. I don't think I've ever seen someone coming from a context like Torino where he's the leader, he's the wolf, he's the alpha male leading the team, to Roma, and then just completely changing into some different version of him. So it's been a really sad sight because his career suffered a lot because of it. Roma were perhaps the wrong choice for him. Perhaps it was all in that 2 month wait, because if you ever end up waiting for 2 months, um, and then you're just sort of, then remember at the beginning he couldn't really put two games together. He was struggling with
yes, yeah,
injuries. He was constantly staying at Trigoria on weekends to work out. He even missed like some international duty with Italy. He decided to against it because he needed to get some workouts in. I mean, perhaps that's where it started, but the way it ended, pretty sad, because I had high hopes for him to be able to play as a functional, reliable option off the bench. Never had the sense that he could be of any help to Roma's cause.
yeah. I just didn't ever see it falling off a cliff this far, simply because, from again, just the very basic standpoint of this guy is so used to having nobody even slightly talented. I mean, a midfield devoid of quality. Absolutely no creative force around him, and yet he was able to pull out 15 goals every season without any sort of dip in quality or output. He was so consistent, no matter how inconsistent everybody around him was or who the manager was. It was alarming. Everybody was excited about him coming here. Uh, the way it has worked out, I don't think anybody ever, as you mentioned, could have envisioned this happening. But um, yes, R.I.P. Belotti at Roma. Just wow. This will be one in a few years if we still have if we are still lucky enough to be doing this. We'll be looking back at it and say, "Do you
Yes, we will look
yeah, do you
back on this.
remember
Yeah.
when Andrea Belotti left Torino
Boom.
and there
This
were all these
episode
rumors he was going to
right here.
play in America,
Right
and then he comes to
here.
Roma, he waits the entire summer, and then he doesn't do any. It's going to be one of those deals. But I, yeah, the fact he's going to Como really just says it all. There's no more needed to be added on top of that. But we will leave it there. We will be back again probably in a week, and then once July hits, once the transfer market officially opens, um, we will
Well,
go
let's
full
see.
force.
Let's see, because we know how crazy it is and how much,
Well,
sometimes the too much noise is not good.
anything you or I say about it, nobody listens. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I know, absolutely. But it's just,
we
and
enjoy the
again,
torture. Let's
just,
just admit it. Everyone likes torture.
and
We all
also
enjoy
let's
reading this
let's
stuff.
reiterate that, okay, transfer market is not open yet. It opens in July. That's when things slowly start to take shape. Right now we can talk about agreements, we can talk about pre-agreements, whatever. The real stuff happens after July. In the meantime, take it easy, enjoy yourselves, dedicate your time to things other than rumors, because you can rest assured that there's going to be a lot of them.
Or
Not all of
football in
them
general.
deserve
Go
your
watch a
attention.
Euro. Come on, don't
Not
torture
a lot of
yourself.
them, very few of them deserve your attention. So instead, enjoy the games, enjoy the summer, enjoy the nice weather.
Until next time, everyone. Ciao.